Hey guys, welcome to Mac to Explore Embedded Systems YouTube channel. Today we are going to see two different microcontroller boards, development boards, which are very popular in IoT applications. Those are nothing but ESP32 and ESP8266. So we will see in detail about these, what are these boards and their specifications and applications. So before that, we will see brief introduction about the concepts of like MPU, MCU, SoC and all the concepts related to those boards in embedded systems. So MPU, which stands for microprocessor, MCU microcontroller, SoC means system on chip, SBM, which are single board microcontrollers, and SBC, which is like single board computers. So you may have may have known these all short forms of used in embedded systems. So microprocessor, you can see these are microprocessors like Intel, and all this microcontroller chips like AVR, you can see here, like ESP32, this is SoC actually, system on chip. SBM, like single board microcontrollers like Arduino, and you can find here like single board computers like Raspberry Pi, Jetson Nano, Latte Panda, and Intel Galileo, etc. So let's see what is microprocessor first. So microprocessor is a CPU on a single integrated circuit. The microprocessor is a multi-purpose, clock-driven, register-based digital integrated circuits IC which accepts binary data as an input, process it according to the instruction stored in its memory, and provide the result as output. So you can see here generalized block diagram of a microprocessor, which is also called as a CPU on a single integrated circuit, which has a registers, combinational logic, control unit, instruction decoder, ALU and AGU. ALU stands for arithmetic and logical unit, and AGU stands for address generation unit. So example of this microprocessor is x86, Z086, Z085, Z80, Intel Pentium dual core and I series. These are all microprocessors. So you must have seen, or you must have heard about MPU Z80, very popular microprocessor in 80s. So this is Zilog Z80 microprocessor. It has architecture you can see here, which is these are all registers. This is ALU, address arithmetic and logic unit. Here is address control section, which has an instruction register, instruction decoder, control logic, and these all peripherals of this microprocessor. So there is another example of this microprocessor is MPU is 8085, which is most very popular in 18s and 90s. You can see here its architecture, 8085's architecture, where there is a ALU, all these are flag register and accumulator, instruction register, instruction decoder, timing and control block, decoder. These are all buses, internal buses. This is 8-bit microprocessor actually, 8085. It has a 8-bit internal data bus and 16-bit address bus. So here you can see this is address latch, and all this is a architecture of 8085. So these are all about what is microprocessor. Now let's see what is microcontroller, MCU. So microcontroller is a or is a small computer on a single integrated IC chip, integrated circuit IC. Microcontroller contains one or more CPUs. Microcontroller may contains one or more CPUs, processor cores, along with memory and programmable IOs, input-output peripherals. So here is generalized block diagram of microcontroller. You can see here where this is a microcontroller which has one microprocessor on it, and it has other peripherals like RAM, ROM on chip, and all other peripherals like serial ports and IOs. So microcontroller contains one or more CPUs along with programmable IO peripherals and other memory on chip memory. So examples of microcontroller is 8051 microcontroller, very popular, Peak series, AVR, and STM32 series, etc. You can see here. So let's see example of this microcontroller. Let's see what is difference between MCU and MPU. So here is the microprocessor, and microcontroller has a microprocessor on board with other peripherals like memory, ROM, RAM, flash memory. Also it has peripherals like IO, timers, ADCs, serial ports, clock generation unit, and analog to digital converter or DAC, etc. So example of we have seen MCS51, that is 8051 microcontroller. This one, it has architecture like this. It has a ALU, and you can see that it has a RAM on board, EEPROM on board. So comparing with the microprocessor MPU 8085, it has a onboard, it do not have any RAM on board. You can see here, not ROM also. So MCU microcontroller has a onboard, they have onboard memory and peripherals. So this is another example of a very popular development board, which is called Arduino Uno. It has one chip which is 80 mega 32 Atmels AVR microcontrollers chip. This is a block diagram or architectural schematics of this microcontroller. Another example is ESP8266, as we have going to see this development board which is built around this MCU microcontroller, which has different peripherals on chip. You can see here UART, GPIO. This is UART and GPIO, general purpose input output pins, I2C protocol, I2S protocol, STIO, PWM unit, ADC, SPI, serial parallel interface, flash. You can see here. It also has a wireless capability or communication capability. You can see here. So this is MCU ESP8266. Another concept is system on chip, SoC. So what is this SoC? SoC is an integrated circuit, also known as a chip, that integrates all or most components of a computer or other electronic system. So these components almost always include central processing unit, CPU, memory, IO ports, and secondary storage, all on a single substrate or a microchip, the size of coin. So it may contain digital, analog, mixed signal, often radio frequency signal processing functions. Otherwise it will be only considered as an application processor. So examples of SoCs ESP32 chip or Broadcom BCM2711 SoC, which is SoC of Raspberry Pi board. Actually, yes, Raspberry Pi 2, I think. So this is a generalized block diagram of SoC, which has a 2 MCU cores. It is just example for learning purpose. So it has a 2 MCU cores, as it has a memory RAM-ROM memory unit, which has a RAM, ROM, flash, and external flash and RAM. You can connect it, and that is a capability of wireless, that is Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, LoRa, and RF. You can implement in SoC. It has a communication protocols supported like SPI, I2C, I2S, UART, CAN, Ethernet, PWM, ADC, DAC, etc. It has a debug circuit on board and other supporting peripherals. So let's see example. Here you can see difference between the microcontroller and SoC. So SoC has a MCU on board, 1 or 2 or more. So here is the example of SoC ESP32, which is here is the block diagram of this ESP32. We will see it in detail in coming session. This is the ESP32 SoC, which is here. You can see that this is the ESP32 development board. This part in below this part, this is the circuitry where this SoC resides. You can see here. So this is very tiny chip. You can see here SoC but with different and multiple functionalities, like you can see here it support this much, or this is all protocols. It has a Bluetooth enabled, it has a Wi-Fi and all these capabilities. So another concept is SBM, single board microcontrollers. A single board microcontroller is a microcontroller built onto a single printed circuit board. This board provides all the circuitry necessary for useful control a task, microprocessor, I/O circuits, clock generator, RAM like stored program memory, and other necessary support ICs. These single board computers mostly used for fast prototyping. The intention is that the board is immediately useful to an application developer without requiring them to spend time to have an effort to develop controller hardware. Another examples of this single board microcontrollers are Arduino Uno, Mega, Texas Launchpad, etc. You can see here block diagram of this generalized block diagram is this SBM single board microcontrollers, which has a on-board microcontroller and other peripherals like USB, Ethernet, Wi-Fi capability, and other dedicated RAM, ROM, and power supply, a regulator on board like reset buttons, LEDs, and other things. So examples of this single board microcontroller is a ESP32 or ESP8266 development board. You can see here it has a ESP8266 microcontroller on board. It has a built-in LED, it has a Wi-Fi antenna capability, or it has onboard Wi-Fi antenna actually. It has a regulator, 3.3 volt LDO regulator on board. It has a flash button, it has a USB interface also. So this is single board microcontroller, which is nothing but it has a built onto a single printed circuit board, and it provides all the circuitry necessary for control task. These are all examples of the single board microcontrollers like Arduino Uno, Metro board of Adafruit. This is Arduino Nano. This is STM32 development board, F series, STM32 F4 series, Nucleo board. This is a launchpad of Texas Launchpad. development board which is based on ARM Cortex M4F processor microcontroller. This is SIM800 on board, which is ESP32 development board. You can see here this is particle photon. This is ESP8266 development board. Now let's see what are single board computers. We have seen earlier single board microcontrollers. Now we will see SBC, single board computer. So single board computer is nothing but a complete computer built on a single circuit board with microprocessors, memory, IOs and other features peripherals required for a functional computer. This small computer runs a dedicated operating system. That's why they call it single board computer. For examples, they are very popular like Raspberry Pi, BeagleBone Black, Intel Edison, Galileo, Android and many more. So here is the block diagram of a single board computer. You can see here it has a microprocessor or microcontroller. You can hear with the peripherals and OS capabilities and other extra capabilities. Here are the examples of popular single board computers like Raspberry Pi, BeagleBone Black, Intel Galileo, NVIDIA Jetson Nano, and these all other boards like Asus boards, and this is Latte Panda board. So now let's see the main topic of this video, which is ESP32 and ESP8266 development boards, and these are chips. So let's see in detail in second part of this video.